So now we move to 19th century in Europe. The first characteristic is Romanticism art. I thought it was going to be romantic scenes, and it definitely doesn't represent the word. It's so opposite to what you imagine. The artist copies the way he feels. It's varied subjects, and it's usually a revolt against a conforming or rational thought. It shows an intense emotion, both for the artist and the person that's viewing the painting. Some of them are very graphic, and they're characterized by loose brushstrokes and dark colors. Some images can be allegorical, which they sort of tell a story. Like an example is the liberty leading the people. It's the idea of freedom. So just by seeing the painting, you know there's a story. Then we move to realism art. Realism, as opposed to romanticism, is exactly what the word implies. It's a real image. It's like a shot from a camera. It's what you paint, what you see, and usually there's social consciousness behind the motivation. It shows the real motion. It's not intensified, and there's no visible brushstrokes. Everything is very accurate and detailed. Nature is shown as it is. It's an idealized imagination to how you're observing the image that you're painting. Then we move to Impressionism. Impressionism is also what the word implies. It's an impression of the painting. It doesn't have a finish, and salons would reject those. They insulted, the critics would insult those paintings, calling them impressionist. It was meant as an insult, and now that term doesn't give you as an insult. This painting is an example of an impressionism. You don't see, the forms aren't clear. It's sort of the light and the color is amplified, and the brush strokes are thick, and you can see the brush strokes. They don't show defined lines other than by the color, and most of them would show atmospheric conditions, the way they saw him in natural light. And the way they did this is they would put like a comma of one color next to a comma with a different color, and they would visually, when you stood back, visually mix it. Instead of mixing the paint colors in the palette, it was mixed visually when you looked at the painting. And the influence would be modernity for the 19th century, which was really that the style was unique to the artist. The subject matter could be life in modern time, which was usually in Paris. Paris had an explosion of population, and they had widened the streets and rebuilt buildings. So it was very modern, and the classes would mix. So when they painted the life in Paris, they showcased the lifestyles, and each artist was able to uh, experiment new styles, which was of modern time. They didn't have to stick to or conform to the rules that other movements had. Like Van Gogh had, instead of one linear perspective, he had two in the same painting, which sometimes was sort of confusing because it looked like a child had painted it. Or it was shifting view, like if you were viewing the painting as you, or a statue as you were going around it. And that's why it was modern, because they had the liberty to do what they wanted to do. And that's the end of my presentation.